Hello and welcome to Reely Rated, the movie discussion podcast. I'm your host, Mitchell Stevens, and today I'm joined by my co-host, Jess Andrews. Jess, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you. I'm getting ready for a big night out, so I'm pumped and ready to go. How are you?
Good. Have you caught that tuna yet?
Any day now.
For the longest time, well, not the longest time, when I was watching the film, I was looking at it thinking, oh, that's a really big swordfish. I didn't realise it was a tuna or a tuna. Like, I know they were saying oh, have you caught that tuna yet, Dill, and stuff like that, and I was like, it's a swordfish. What are you about?
Did you think they were being affectionate?
Well, I started thinking, well, is a swordfish part of the tuna family? And then I thought, I'm not going to fall down into this, rabbit hole of trying to search what sort of
Oh my God, we could actually do a really rated fish podcast. We've got really in the title already.
Is it tuna? Is it swordfish?
Who knows? Let's discuss.
Although the swordfish is the coolest of all the fish. I mean, it has a weapon for a nose.
I don't know. I think manta ray is probably my favourite, but still.
Right. So enough of this preamble, because our regular listeners will know what we're talking about, but the new listeners might be like, what the hell are they talking about? Jess, we are talking about Serenity, and it was released this year, so 2019. Oh, I just dated the podcast.
So not the Firefly movie.
No, not the brilliant Firefly. Well, it was okay.
You and Rich can discuss that another day, because he loves that.
So this was your pick, Jess. So why did you decide to pick Serenity?
Well, I did have another one in mind, but then I'd recently watched it on Sky TV. It is released in the cinemas, but they're also showing it on Sky Telly, which is a bit odd, but hey-ho. It's been released recently, and it's divided pretty much everyone that's seen it, as far as I know. It's mostly negative, but I feel like there's quite a lot that they were going for, which we will discuss. So essentially, it begins out like a typical neo-noir thriller where Matthew McConaughey, all right, is fishing for tuna on Plymouth Island. And he's your typical grouchy fisherman, doesn't really like anybody, just wants to catch his tuna. And he gets approached by his ex-wife, who essentially wants to hire him as a hitman. I'm not sure why, essentially, she went for him, but we'll find that out later. And offers him $10 million to throw him off the side of the boat and leave him to the sharks. And that is basically the plot, to be honest.
Until we get to the twist, but I'll mention that in a minute. This was a film that I actually wanted to see, and I didn't actually remember it until you prompted me that it was up on Sky Movies. And I watched the trailer, and I realised that I'd seen this trailer not that long ago, but I watched it and I thought, that looks right up my alley. I love a good thriller, I love good murder, I love a good kind of sexy cast, which you've got Matthew McConaughey and Anne Hathaway, and Jason Clarke, who I love.
Oh, it's a great cast, isn't it?
Really good cast. And I was watching it, I was like, oh, that's right up my alley, I want to watch that. So then watched it, and I'll get into certain bits of it in a minute, but I started watching it and I thought to myself, there's something off about this film. Like certain cues that we'll mention later that I thought, this isn't your typical neo-noir thriller that I thought it was going to be. Because as it turns out, and we're going to have to mention the twist first, because, so spoilers if you haven't seen the film, don't drop your phone or your laptop, whatever you're listening to it on.
Throw your phone across the room.
Be gone! And then go watch the film and then come back and join the deep discussion, because it's going to be quite deep. So this is your spoiler warning. So basically, the film takes place within a video game.
What?
And it didn't blow my mind, as I imagine that the director/writer, which is Stephen Knight, wanted to do. Because, like I said, there were cues throughout the film that I thought to myself, this is a bit odd for a film that essentially is meant to be just your straightforward, simple love triangle, murder, thriller type thing.
Well, I can remember watching it because me and Rich, we had a little date night. So we sat down, turned the lights off and got a popcorn. And we were like, right, can't wait to watch this. And it took about 2 minutes in for it. For me, we kept turning to each other and being like, this is really weird. Like, the writing is horrendous on this. And I kept saying, I can't believe that Matthew McConaughey and Anne Hathaway would agree to this script because it's awful. But then there was a bit, I think it's quite early in, I'd say it's about 20 minutes in, if that, where Matthew McConaughey walks along the coastline and the camera does this really weird like perspective tilt.
Yes.
And I said to Rich, that looks just like when you're in a game and you do the perspective thing. Do you know what I mean? Like where it like swings.
And do you know what that reminded me of? And when I saw it, the first thing that popped into my mind was Mission Impossible 2. Now that is directed by John Woo, so he has a lot of those shots, you know, sort of like he basically created bullet time.
Right.
You know, where it slows down and you see the bullets, and which inspired Matrix heavily. But he is a master at shooting action films, but he uses a lot of camera pans or camera swooshes, I call it.
Yeah, swoosh.
But there's a shot, I don't know if this inspired Night or not, but there's a shot of Tom Cruise right early on in Mission Impossible 2, and it literally goes from the back of his head, pans right round to the front of his face, and I was like, that is exactly like this film.
Okay.
These are the cues I'm talking about. That doesn't belong in a neo-noir thriller, which is, I looked up online, that is what it was marketed as, because they obviously wanted to keep the twist a secret.
Yeah, and to be fair to them, they did a really good job, because the trailer, whoever made the trailer, bravo, because I didn't can't believe I said that. I hate trailers these days.
They basically polished a turd there, honestly. They need a raise, whoever did that trailer.
Honestly, they really did. I mean, it did look a little bit cheesy, but because I mean, the nature of the neo-noir is that it's cheesy, isn't it, really?
And we'll get in deeper into the twist, like, later on, or basically, the twists, I don't know about you, Jess, but the notes I've taken, it does actually sort of colour a lot of how I first watched the film and how I watched it a second time.
Yeah.
So I will be mentioning like your differences between what I thought it was going to be and what it actually turned out to be.
So let's explain because well, it's a funny one because it's actually a very simple concept, but the execution makes it very hard to understand, like how it all kind of works.
Yeah.
So basically, there's a little boy in a room who's like a computer genius.
Called Patrick, I think is his name. Yeah, Patrick. He is played by Raphael Saeed.
I'd say he was all right, but he didn't really have much to work with, did he? He was just sort of sat there a lot of the time. So basically, Patrick is building a video game in which his dead father is the main character, but is brought to life through the video game. And his mum, who's beaten up by her horrible boyfriend, is Anne Hathaway's character, Karen. So that, of course, that means that her abusive husband in the film is her abusive husband in real life, played by Jason Clarke, like you said. And it's all kind of, I mean, this narrative has been done 1,000 times, you know, the whole story within a story, and like, like a really obvious comparisons like The Wizard of Oz.
Yeah, and also the main correlation I had from this film to another one was actually Vanilla Sky.
Yes. Yeah.
Only because you had Baker Deal, his character, and Tom Cruise character, they always they have this kind of like crisis of belief, whereas in like what is real, what isn't, who knows Justin? Like they're both like, is this real, is it not? I can't tell. Whereas Tom Cruise's character goes down the very dark, you know, rabbit hole where he's kind of like doubting life itself. Whereas Baker Deal has a kind of crisis in terms of he knows that this is not a real world that he's in, and he wants to try and sort of get to his son.
It doesn't. I just don't think it makes sense at all. Sorry, I wish someone would sit down and explain it to me, because obviously, don't get me wrong, I get it. Like I get, like, you know, the theme and everything, but I just don't understand how it logistically works.
Let's jump to the end. I know it's going to sound a bit unusual for us to jump straight to the end, so just bear with us, listeners. But I think this film is a lot more simpler than what they think it is. However, because the execution is so bad, in my opinion, it kind of twists what it's like they don't stick to their own rules. And the only reason why I say this is so, like, you know, the lawyer type guy who turns out to be the rules of the game, which is, his name's Reed Miller, he's played by Jeremy Strong.
Who's a lot more dishy in real life, by the way.
Oh, is he?
Yeah.
When Mr. Miller reveals to Baker Deal that this is a game on that stormy night, and then later on the beach, and they're just talking, and he says he's the rules.
Yeah.
That made me think that, okay, so all this is established within the video game, and that's fine, that makes sense. It's after the reveal, once that John has killed Jason Clarke's character, which is Frank, I believe his name is. Is it Frank?
Yeah.
And we see that it is intercut with Patrick murdering his father off camera.
Yeah.
It's where the film takes a weird turn that I don't actually understand what is real and what isn't. So, like, you know, when you see the news report and it reveals what Patrick's done and all that, blah, blah, blah. And then he's in the jail cell, and then the world starts at the end, like reconstituting itself. They have a line where it says, or Patrick says, that he's going to change the game.
Yeah.
Now, I believe that is after he's out of jail. Obviously, he's going to change the video game. He's going to like reprogram it to reflect a happier life. And I assume this is where it gets a bit cloudy though, because at the end, right at the end, when he's running down the dock into like Matthew McConaughey's arms, which actually got me. I can't, because it plays with your interpretation of like what's in Patrick's head and what isn't, because certain things that happen in the game, I think to myself that couldn't happen because like.
Well, this is actually something that I think is a massive flaw. Because, okay, so you accept, somehow you accept that this boy has created this video game and his dad is the main hero character and stuff. Why on earth is he giving his dad sex scenes?
Yeah.
Don't you think that's just really inappropriate and bizarre?
And this is the thing, though, and this is a flaw, because I also compare this to Matrix. Now, The Matrix, for better or for worse, as the 3 films go along, it gets more convoluted and complicated as to like what is the rules of the game.
But you understand how that works because they're plugged into the Matrix. So they are people actually, their actions or, well, their thoughts impact that through like a physical kind of program, right?
Yeah, exactly. But
this has none.
No, exactly. That's what I mean. Though, so like, do we have to accept that Patrick isn't playing this game 24/7? So some of the things that John does within the game, he is basically, you know how like Toy Story, so you know how like the toys have their own secret life away from being played with, and then when they're being played with, they're sort of like inanimate objects, which Andy can play with Will. Do we have to think it's the same thing with Patrick? So when Patrick is away from the keyboard or AFK, do the characters within the game play themselves basically and live out their own life, or is this what Patrick is imagining in his head? Do you see what I'm saying? Like, so is Patrick imagining that these people are real in the game, and this is what he's and this is where the film falls short, because you don't 100% know what you're meant to believe.
I think people would find it a lot easier to believe. I don't know. People probably would have said, "Oh, it's a bit cheesy." But if he'd have like kind of engineered some kind of like the Matrix, where he like plugs himself in, so there's actually some kind of cognitive behaviour rather than just him. Because although I suppose it's just occurred to me, but do you reckon it's meant to be more of a metaphor? How violence, you know how people go, oh, violent video games make people violent. Do you think perhaps it's trying to say that like people justify their actions because they play video games?
I think it's both. I think they're trying to say that video games, can influence you to kill, but also I think the film is also trying to say, oh, it's cathartic for Patrick to be able to, off his stepdad in the game, and then it encourages him to do it in real life. Is in like,
that's a good point though, because actually I think the story would have actually benefited if he hadn't killed his dad in real life and it had just been a catharsis, and that was that. It would have made so much more sense, because it would have been, okay, he's playing the character and he's using it to like get his emotions out, and that's how he feels. But like the fact that it's like I don't get the link between the real life and I get it. It's really hard to explain. I feel really stupid and I'm just missing something.
Yeah, and if the film was, because you could go like a dark direction with this, and not to trigger anyone or anything like that, but like if you went to a dark place with this in terms of like Patrick commits suicide to join his father in the game.
That's what I thought happened.
See, I think, because I was watching it with Steve, I think he thought the same thing.
Yeah, because he's dead, but then it still doesn't make sense.
No, but if they'd gone down the route where this is all meant to be him trying to escape an abusive life, and it ultimately ends with him killing his father and then ultimately killing himself because he wants to be with his dad.
Yeah.
I could get behind that. It would be very dark, but I think it would also be quite brave of them to go that route. I understand if they don't want to go that route, but however, you've now got to think about the fact that Patrick is still locked up in his room playing a game for the rest of his life, probably. Maybe you're meant to believe that he did kill himself and he is with his father in the game / heaven, which would be the metaphor for it.
When you have this kind of AI, like, fake character thing, it always really blows my mind, because I'm like, I don't understand how they can be real but not real. Do you know what I mean? Like, they set up the characters, like especially Baker Dill. They set him up to be so like real and have a life outside of, like you said, when Patrick is AFK, he is not controlling him. So he has a life, he has a free will. So if Patrick never... So, like, can he die? How was he born? Like, it really confuses me. Maybe I'm thinking too much into it.
The film actually tries to explain that itself, and it does it shoddily by going, Patrick has created, like, mini-games within the game. So, like, John catching that tuna, that's a mini-game within the game. And also, they said about finding the cat for Diane Lane's Constance. So there's all these... So you're meant to believe that there's all these mini-games within this game that obviously are being played that occupies John's time within the game and everyone else's time.
But then why did he create him in the first place if Patrick's intention was to, like, live vicariously through his dad and, like, find the strength to kill his stepdad through his dad, like, then why did he create all the mini games and stuff? It seems completely counterintuitive to his whole thing. That's
why ultimately I don't think the metaphor for the fact that this is a world within a video game that we didn't realise was a video game until the end works. Because I don't know, I just find it... So, because one of the aspects I thought that this was, because, like, so the first cue that I realised I wasn't watching a film that I thought I was signed up for was, in Reed Miller, we meet him right at the start, and he take off his shoes and then hoist up his trousers and walk straight through the water.
Yeah.
I was like, that wouldn't happen. Like, because I thought there was a lawyer trying to serve John with, like, some sort of, like, court date or something.
That's what I thought, yeah.
Yeah, because, like, the trailer had told me that he's got an ex-wife out there who wants him to kill her abusive husband. And I thought, okay, this is the lawyer trying to serve him notice or something. On something, or like a notice on the boat or something.
Yeah, like a money thing to give him incentives to take the hitman thing.
Yeah. So when I saw him and he was like watching the boat come in from the distance, and I was like, okay, so he's after John for some reason, and then he just sort of like just nonchalantly walks through the water. And I turned to Steve and went, "There's something not right here," and he was like, "What do you mean?" I said, for a sort of film that I thought we were watching, that wouldn't happen. I said, it's too weird and it's too comedic.
It's comedic, yeah, it was funny rather than...
And then we had the perspective change that you were on about, with the camera swooshing around John's head. And then the next sign was Anne Hathaway, like, and she was first introduced with her hand going through her hair, and the diamond ring goes bling.
Yeah.
Even with a comedic, soap opera type ding.
Yeah, an actual bling, yeah.
Yeah, and I was like, nah. I said, this isn't a neo-noir thriller that I thought I was watching. And I was on board. I was like, fine, I'm intrigued. I want to see where this goes. But even her characterisation, she was so kind of like Southern Belle, like Blanche in A Streetcar Named Desire.
Yeah.
Even down to, like, her being dressed in all white.
Well, do you know what, actually, to be fair, I've said a lot of negative about it, but I will say that once you know that it's meant to be set inside a video game... I definitely tweaked it very early on. Like, for once, I actually guessed a twist, which isn't hard because it was very obvious. But, most of the scenes, actually, especially the ones between him and Karen, are very, very reminiscent of when you play, like Grand Theft Auto and things like that, with the little cutscenes. So it's very, like, just the way it was shot and the way they stand and, like, the language they use. It's very sort of like, it's almost like you're waiting for them to say, like, their next mission.
Yeah.
Like the next stage of the game. Like,
yeah.
Go and collect... Like her saying, like, oh, go and I want you to drop my husband into the sharks. Literally is like when you watch a cutscene from one of those video games.
Yeah.
And then you go through and it plays through that way. So it is actually very clever. Little tiny little bits of it. Like sometimes when certain action is going on... And Karen quite often stands in the background, sort of very, is very much like a, what are they called? An unplayable character.
It's funny you mention that, because also when we first meet Karen, they're on the boat, and she leaves, and he pulls out of the harbour, and Reed Miller is running towards him, and he's shouting, wait! He turns to Karen and says to her, excuse me, ma'am, do you know that man? And she totally ignores him. And that's another thing that if I thought to myself, hang on a minute, she doesn't see him. She doesn't even hear him. But, like, a really dodgy video game would do that. Like a two NPCs wouldn't see each other or hear each other. They'll just walk off and not react.
And do you know what? I think I would have preferred, if they'd have filmed the entire film like that. Because a lot of it is not filmed like a game at all.
Yeah.
So it's actually very jarring. Maybe they did that on purpose to kind of highlight when... Like you said, when he was at his desk and when he was playing. But I feel like they should have either not done that at all or made it way more obvious, because it just felt really, the tone was off the whole way through. And because you don't, I suppose it's one of those things maybe that is, on a second watch it's more obvious. Like when you watch The Sixth Sense. But even in The Sixth Sense though, it's so seamless. It's all filmed the same way, so it's not jarring, is it?
To use Sixth Sense as a comparison, and a lot of like M. Night Shyamalan films actually, when I watch his films back, I'm not bored. I'm not waiting for the twist. It's the character's journey that I'm engaged with, and I'm like, well, take me on the ride again, even though I know the twist. And like you said, there's also like hints as well, which is actually more clever and like interesting.
Yeah. It's fun to watch when you know there's like clues to look out for.
Watching this back, however, I was so bored because I felt like the build-up to when Karen arrives is so long that I was like, even though Karen is an NPC within the game, she is the main thrust of the story. That is the most interesting part of the story.
Yes.
Whereas everyone else is always sort of like encouraging Dill to go on with his mission. Like, they're not real humans.
But if they're not real humans, then why do they do the things that they do, which are very, very human? Like, when he's having a random affair with the cat lady, like... That's not part of the game. But that's the thing as well. Like, you say that, he's living this life when Patrick is AFK, but then why is he still playing the mini games if he's not there? Yeah, it just doesn't make sense, any of it.
Well, the first thing that comes to mind is, like on the radio, and it goes, welcome to Plymouth, blah, blah, blah. And there's a point in the film where he actually goes, go out and catch that fish.
Yeah.
That is subliminal messaging to tell Dill to go out and catch that fish, because I think there's times where Dill doesn't even know why he's catching his fish in his head.
I always thought that bit, because I remember thinking that is really odd, like,
yeah,
but I thought maybe that's just kind of like, maybe he's become so consumed by it that he's starting to imagine things rather than the radio's actually telling him to go catch the fish. But it's just odd because, like, you see a lot of shots as well. That was it as well. You know all the underwater shots where the little boy is it's like a different, no, it's not a different little boy, is it? It's a younger little boy. I thought that his son had died and that he drowned.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
And that the fish was meant to be just something that he was concentrating on to stop like grieving.
The thing is, like, you saying this, it winds me up even more that I think to myself, this film... No.
Sorry.
Yeah, not you, no. Jess, you're winding me up. This film didn't need that twist. This could have been such a deep psychological exploration of this man who has suffered a loss. Because if you took the fact that he's dead and switch it to that his son is dead, because like you, I thought his son was dead. Because in the shot where we first see a younger Patrick than what we see in real life, and they're fishing, I thought, and because then you hear a scream and it's Karen. And then you hear Frank, though, which then sort of is obviously it's Patrick's real life interfering in the game. I thought that it was going to be that his son drowned, like you said, and it was a fishing accident.
Yes.
And also there was points, because right at the beginning we go through Patrick's eye.
Yeah.
For the longest time watching it, I thought it was a younger John.
Oh.
I can't tell whether or not that is a separate person or it's John younger, and he's gone through this abuse when he was younger. And I know people would say, but then obviously given how Matthew McConaughey is in his early 50s, is it now?
Yeah.
Obviously, if they were to do it younger from Matthew McConaughey, they would have to go back to the is it 70s?
Yeah.
Especially for him as a teenager. However, there was no time or year or date for this Plymouth Island, because that island could exist at whatever period in history. Because, because it was modelled on a Caribbean island, because they filmed this in Mauritius, I believe.
Yeah, they did.
And coastal towns very hardly change, like places like that, because they like to keep it, kind of authentic and sort of old worldy. So the fact that it was Patrick at a computer, it didn't dissuade me from that. But the fact that it could be a representation of John younger. But then obviously it was certain periods where, because the bit where he's sort of touching the water on the table and then Patrick's touching the water on the table in the real life. That just gave me more evidence that it was a younger him, because he has an affinity for the ocean from a young age. Right, yeah. This could have been an exploration of a crisis of faith for him.
The problem is that everything that you want the film to be, it's not. And it feels like you had 10 options for what the narrative could have gone to, and they all would have been fine and really good. But they chose the one that's oh, okay.
To disagree, no, I disagree with you a little bit. I think they picked all of them. Like they wanted a neo-noir
made a gumbo.
sexy... Yeah, they wanted a neo-noir sexy thriller which they marketed it as. So you had Frank, which was wasted in the film. Jason Clarke is totally wasted in the film.
They all were.
Yeah, and then Karen. Oh, Anne Hathaway. Do you know what? Actually, a little bit of trivia for you. This is the lowest earning film that Anne Hathaway has ever starred in.
But do you think that is something to do with the fact that it was on Sky Cinema? Which is really odd, the whole setup of that, do you not think?
Yep, and also, and this is another thing as well, this film wasn't even going to be released. And Jason Clarke, Anne Hathaway and Matthew McConaughey, I don't know if they I don't think they sued, but they had been promised that this was going to get a national or like international wide release.
Because to be fair, they've all, I think apart from, I think Jason Clarke might have been nominated for an Oscar, but they've all, I think the two leads have got Oscars, so to go from being an Oscar winner to a TV... Fair play, it's Sky Cinema, but still, it is essentially a TV movie, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it suits it.
But do you know what happened? This is winding up, though. So I read that the distributor, I don't have the name right now, they obviously did the test audience, and it didn't test very well, and they kept holding it back. And I think it's only because the director and the stars said that you promised us a national release, blah, 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 release this film, that they obviously eventually did. It got a few cinema in the US release, but not nearly as big as what they all expected it was going to be. Then obviously it got quietly put away and then released. Was it released into cinemas here? Or was it just streaming?
I think it's here.
In cinemas?
I've seen it. Like I've seen it advertised saying
okay.
It's in cinemas, but I haven't seen it like at the cinema, if you see what I mean.
Because I know we could turn around and sort of say to Anne and Matthew and Jason and say, dude,
we're on first name terms.
Yeah, you don't want this film out. You don't want this on your resume. However, those three actors I don't think can be harmed from this film. Like they're still going to be picked for bigger, better roles in the future. And to be fair to them, they must have taken so much time out of their real lives to then fly to Mauritius, because it's filmed on location as well. To film this, I would want it out. I'd be like, this is my hard work. Release the damn film.
And to be fair to them, actually, I was thinking about this earlier. If you actually look at just their performances in the context that it was meant to be with the script, not, forgetting all like Dallas Buyers Club and Les Mis and all the other things they've been in that were grittier and more sort of realistic.
Yeah.
They are fit to purpose. Their acting is actually very good, considering that it's meant to be quite hammy.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think that they act badly in it. I think that their direction was shit.
And I know I slammed... I didn't even mean to slam her. Like, I know I compared Anne Hathaway's Karen to, like, Blanche from Streetcar Named Desire. If that is the film that they wanted to give me, Tennessee Williams, very over-the-top, what's the word? Melodrama. That's what I'm looking for. Melodrama.
Yeah.
It would have worked.
Yes.
If they just kept it as a thriller, a sexy thriller, and then also had because they could have shown the after effect of the murder.
Yeah.
Could Karen and John get away with it? Because then John having his crisis of faith for the fact that they've lost his son, or what we thought he lost his son. It would have been them dealing with the aftermath of another death within their family. I know it's a death that they probably both would want, but you could have had... Because just for our listeners, like, me and Jess are both like screenwriters, like not professional. We haven't sold anything yet, have we, Jess?
No.
But we're a writing team. We've written a few things together. But so we always approach films from that sort of viewpoint, like if we were writing this ourselves. And this is the one film this is the first film that in a long time that I've actually watched and thought to myself, if I'd written this, what would I have done?
Yes.
And how could I, not to slam Night, but how could I made it better, or at least match the trailer that I wanted?
Yes.
That's what I would have done. I would have kept the whole crisis of faith and John, and I would have had the son dead. But the aftermath of the murder would have been so much more interesting than the actual murder itself. So the fact that we never even got that, because that's not the sort of film that we were watching, it would have made this whole kind of melodrama that they filmed it as that much more enticing or that much more interesting. It's just... I think my main crux of my issue with the film is just the fact that I didn't get what I was sold.
That's the thing, yeah. It really is a shame, actually, when you see a trailer and you get so excited and you think this is going to be amazing. Like, I can remember seeing the trailer and literally, like, running over to Rich in the house and being like, oh my God, this looks so cool. I can't wait to see it. You know, it's basically like Jaws on the sea. Like, I was waiting for, like, a, you know, really tense thriller on the sea where there's, like, sharks and, like, is he or isn't he going to kill him? And, like, how is the wife involved? And all this sort of stuff. And it was just, like, they kind of went for it. But it just, it was so disappointing. I was so upset.
And also, some of the characters don't match the film that it actually turns out to be. So, like...
Right, exactly.
I've compared Karen to Blanche in Streetcar Named Desire in that, but... She is the main crux of that separate storyline that you thought you're going to get, like the sexy noir thriller. So you're watching this sort of like crisis of faith film. At the beginning, you know, this lonely man who's a drinker and that, and barely surviving. And then she enters the frame. You think to yourself, right, this is the start of the story that I saw in the trailer. This is the start of a, you know, dicey thriller. Her character never changes. Like, she's forever that sort of like... She's stepped in from another film. And John and these two films are sort of mashing together. Like, they don't fit. I don't even think... I mean, you might disagree with me, but I don't actually think the two of them actually have chemistry together either. And I don't know whether or not that was a acting choice in terms of, like... Because Karen's quite reserved and quite kind of, like... She has to hold herself together because if she doesn't, she's just going to fall apart. Whereas, like, John is sort of, like, doesn't care anymore. Because you know that awkward sex scene that they have?
Yeah.
I couldn't decide whether or not it was awkward because it was maybe... partially rape.
Do you think maybe it's because obviously you can't say now, because I feel like whenever Karen is in the scene, that's when when Patrick is playing, right? So you can't say, oh yeah, that's just them like living out their little life. But do you think maybe, I was thinking about this, do you think maybe the sex scene is so awkward and so weird because Patrick is like a 14-year-old boy who doesn't know what sex is like? Do you think it looks like rape because all he's seen is porn?
Because this goes back to the whole perspective thing, because in our last show when we talked about Ex Machina and I said how you view Ava is depending on who you view the film from, if you viewed it from Caleb or Nathan's point of view. With this film, with the perspectives in terms of is this real life or is this a game, I found myself watching Serenity, when I was watching it back, I found like I had a crisis in terms of how I'm viewing the film, because I was writing notes down going, oh, that's obviously a video game motif, that's a video game motif. And then I thought to myself, but hang on a minute, their emotions are totally counterintuitive to viewing it as a video game, because I found the sex awkward because Anne Hathaway's character had only ever been touched recently, because you see later on, like, Frank wants to have sex with her, then at the same time wants to beat her at the same time. So she's associating now intimacy with violence. But
she's not. But it's Patrick though.
So exactly. Then this is the thing. This is why my perspective was like kind of, I didn't know how to view. It's almost like I didn't know how to view her character because I couldn't trust that her emotions were real. Because it was viewed as if these are two lonely people who have been half a human being because the other half has been taken away from them. So when they came together, they both thought that they were going to be whole again. But then during the course of the action, they realised, no, this doesn't work.
I think maybe like it would have worked better, even though it's still pretty creepy to have like him play out his parents' relationship. But I think it would have worked better if they'd have actually had like quite a nice bit of sex. Do you know what I mean? Like romantic.
Because I didn't know who to root for, because it was totally awkward. Like, you don't need to be with any of these people. And I know that's not the point of the film. She doesn't end up with, either of them. Like, Frank's dead, and then she leaves the video game. Like, her character's gone. Her characters serve her the purpose.
I felt like what it was that the problem with that scene, apart from it just being bleh, but like the problem was that this in the scene it kind of starts out with him sort of sympathizing with her, like, oh, he shouldn't hit you and stuff, and you sort of think, oh, he's here to sort of like save her, and that fits in with the way that Patrick wants his dad to be portrayed, like, the savior character, the hero of a story. But then he goes and has weird, like, quite aggressive sex with her, and it's like, huh? Unless that's what he thinks is romantic, like, kind of what the hero would do, because he has a warped view of what, like, love is, maybe. But I must actually, something just occurred to me, which me and Rich had not an argument, but a discussion about this. Because I was saying to Rich, like, when they said, oh yes, he coded this whole game himself, I get that he's meant to be a genius. However, when you play games like, Grand Theft Auto, The Last of Us, these games are like massive landscapes and worlds for the characters to live in, and there's just so much coding and everything. And I said to Rich a few years ago when we were watching one, I said, like, oh, like, how many people must make this game? Because this game is immense. Like, there are so many parts. Everything looks real. The water, the ocean, it's all been animated from, like, miles in the game and stuff. And he was like, oh, well, you've got, like, thousands of people working in a game development studio and blah, 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 blah. And I was like, oh, fair enough. Okay, that sort of makes sense that all those man hours would go into it. And I said to Rich during the film, when it came out that he'd coded this game himself, I laughed and I went, no way. I'm sorry. It doesn't matter how clever he is. He would be like 65 by the time he finished making that game if he was to code it himself. And Rich said, yeah, but he could have like taken a code from another game and like manipulated it. Which I don't agree with. I don't think that you could do that. When you look at how games are made, like, it would still take him years and years and years and years to manipulate all that code, surely.
There are, like, sort of, like, basic games out there, like, on Steam and that, which are sort of, like, not as high-res or in-depth as, like, AAA games that are on consoles and that.
Do you think maybe the game itself, like, if you were in the film and you were actually playing the game, do you think it was actually be very low res and quite basic, whereas obviously they filmed it to look beautiful for us, for our benefit, do you reckon?
Yeah, because there's the shots when you see Patrick play in the game, it's from a first person perspective, and it looked kind of like 90s era computer games first, very kind of blocky.
Okay, that makes sense then. So I was watching it thinking, no freaking way.
But that brings up an interesting idea, though, in the fact that I think we are watching the interpretation of what Patrick sees in his mind of the game. Like, even though he's playing like a blocky kind of like rudimentary game, he's seeing his characters in his head as fully fleshed human beings. So that's probably how we can sort of like get away from that kind of interesting problem.
I think that was actually the film's major flaw, I think that because obviously they tried to make it like a game, and I get that because it was a game for him, but I think that doing that has made everybody confused because now they're thinking it is a physical game he's playing. Like, the game exists like that, when actually it's more of like a internal metaphor. If they'd have just had it, I don't know, made it less obvious.
I think we've resolved that issue, actually, without realising. I think that is actually... So even down to the whole kind of like sex scenes, with the fact that because you said earlier on, like, are we meant to believe that he's playing sex scenes and he's on the game? No, it's just in his head, but it's still messed up. But I think he's playing the game. And actually, there is a real life precedence for this. Like, you hear about people who sort of need to get treatment for game addiction, and it's often related to like World of Warcraft and that sort of massive MMO online stuff. These people get lost. I mean, I do too. I'm a massive gamer, and I do find myself playing games more often when I'm trying to escape something. So if I'm having a bad day or like applying for jobs that like I can't get, I'll go into like play a video game because it'll help me sort of forget about my problems and that. So I can see how people would get lost in a video game like World of Warcraft, but them themselves must also imagine a fictional world in their head. I mean, we do that as writers. Like, when I write, I often have to visualise in my head characters. I'll even go to the extent of like casting actors, so that I can picture someone in my head.
Yeah,
that's fun for me as well. Like, I like thinking about who these people could possibly play my characters that I'm creating. So if we're meant to coalesce all the problems we have with the film into the worldview that we're meant to watch this film from the perspective of the fact that we know it's a video game as the twist happens, but we're also meant to believe that these people are real life human beings because that's what Patrick imagines.
I feel like the execution was probably just not thought out very well. I feel like they kind of got a good idea and went, oh, that's great, yeah, threw some money at it. Managed to get the actors on board. Because I remember I watched an interview about the film with Anne Hathaway and Matthew McConaughey. And they sort of, it was quite, looking back, it's quite funny really, because the interviewer, having watched the film, says, oh, like, why did you choose this script? And you can tell he was a bit like, I don't know why he was like that at the time, but now that I've seen it, I know why. but Anne Hathaway was like, oh, well, the location was really nice, and like, you know, I knew that Matthew McConaughey and Stephen Knight were in it, so I was like, oh, I'm sold. She didn't say like the story was great,
No.
but she did make quite a big deal of the fact that she liked Stephen Knight's work. So, and if you think about it, the actual direction is nice. Like, it looks nice, doesn't it?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Cinematography and everything is really nice. It doesn't look ugly. It just looks stylized in a way that's just kind of a bit tonally off. But I feel like you can kind of see what they were going for, certainly, can't you?
Yeah, so I've just looked up Stephen Knight's known works, and he wrote films such as Dirty Pretty Things, where I don't know what that is, I haven't seen that. Eastern Promises, which is I have seen. He's got a Academy Award for writing original screenplays for Dirty Pretty Things, and also won a BAFTA award for that. He wrote a draft for Shutter Island.
Oh, really?
Which wasn't taken up, so it was rewritten. But you know, with films like that, is that the writers often take the original draft and sort of, you know, work from that.
Mind you, Shutter Island is quite a it's not the same thing, but it has that kind of, what would you call it? Like a mirrored narrative. You know, like a story within a story. Like, it is what, you know, it's kind of like...
Yeah.
It's a story, but it's not really real, but it kind of relates to real life.
I can't think of the word. I know what you mean, but it's like...
Yeah.
But I love those sort of films, and we saw Shutter Island, didn't we? And, like, we really liked it.
I loved it, yeah.
And he directed Hummingbird with Jason Statham and Locke with Tom Hardy. You know, set entirely, and I know that got massive praise. It's set entirely in a car with Tom Hardy, and the whole point of the film is that you don't know where he's going, what he's doing, and the whole plot unravels as it goes along, which is like this film, really. You don't know what's going on until... So he seems to be drawn to films like that.
Well, I think we've pretty much covered everything. Well, I've covered everything I had to say. Have you got any more points?
Have we been negative about this film? I can't decide whether or not we've been negative or we've just been unpacking it, because do you have any plus point? You just said that you like the way it looks, the film.
I like the clever ways in which they made it look like a video game. I can appreciate how they probably went, oh, we can do this, and, you know, kind of manipulate the screen to look like a video game and make the characters behave like they would in a video game. Like, I get that, and I really like that. It just didn't work within the actual script. However, I liked it. To be fair to them, everything fits together. It doesn't make sense, but it does fit together, if you see what I mean. So, like, the fact that I can't say his name, Digimon.
Oh, I can never say his name.
It made sense that he was part, and I did actually quite like the way in which it felt kind of creepy towards the end, and I appreciated that. With how, you know, how all the characters are sort of like within the rules, and they were all trying to like stop him from doing it. That I thought was genius. I thought that was so creepy.
That. Yeah, I so agree. I love that, because it reminded me of like Matrix, and I know I keep saying Matrix, but what I mean by that is like it's because, you know, when Karen arrives, she's almost treated like a virus within the game.
Yes.
Because, you know, when he goes to get his hooks from that woman, and that random woman seems to know everything about Karen and about the husband.
Yeah.
And she tries to dissuade him from going ahead with it. And, like, it's almost like she knows what's going on.
Yeah.
But she doesn't, and she's trying to convince him not to go down this route. And Duke does that as well, and everyone else does that.
Well, that's what I said to Rich. I said, either that's intentional, or Stephen Knight was high when he wrote it, because it reminds me of a certain somebody.
No, same.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because it was so blatant. That, I thought, it was hammy, but it made sense in terms of the actual plot and the twist. But I loved it. Like, at the end, it almost reminded me a bit like The Birds. You know, when he was like going off to the boat, and they're all like, they all come out of their houses and they're all watching him. I thought that was really creepy and good.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I don't have a problem with the ending, like even down to the bad CGI, you know, it's getting remade around
Yeah,
him.
that was terrible.
It actually made me feel sick.
It was kind of like the end of Donnie Darko, but like not even an iota as good.
Oh, I felt so sick. I was like, please stop, please stop.
Yeah, that wasn't good, but...
It was too quick. It needed to be slower. And I was like, I get what you're trying to do. That the world is, sort of reforming around him. But I was like, you need to stop. I feel really sick.
But there isn't much else good to say, if I'm honest.
No, I think my opinion mirrors yours in the way that the end was creepy with all the characters coming out of nowhere. It looked great. I give him that. But you're filming Mauritius. It's hard to make Mauritius look bad.
Do you know what I feel like, actually? I feel like it's one of those films that would have been okay as a short film.
Yes. Yeah.
But not a full length. If it had been like a bit of a, like it's more of like a concept piece.
Yeah, no.
If you see what I mean.
I think that's the word. It's concept. If it was a proof of concept for like a TV series or a film, it would work. But it would be rewritten and reformed. And I respect Stephen Knight for what he. Because I've written a few things that, like, I would tell someone or show them proof of concept, and they would go, "It's good, but you could do this, this, and this." And depending on who it is, I will respect their opinion. But it's almost like you're too close to it. Like, you either need to put it down and come up with something different, or you need to change it, because it's almost like a film that he's come up with in his head, written it, directed it, made it, and everyone else like, it's good, Stephen, but it could be better if you... It's almost like it missed the editing stage.
Yes.
Because I think I would have turned around to him and said, you've got something there, but if you want to do something with a video game S-style reveal, you need to change the concept of it, or at least let the person in early to this is what it is.
I think that's the problem, actually. A lot of the problem with it is that they give too much away. So then by the time the twist drops, you're going, well, that's obvious. And that is so dissatisfying to an audience, I think. You do I know that everyone sits there trying to guess the twist, but when you have guessed it, actually you'd think you'd be satisfied, wouldn't you? Like, I knew it, but actually it's not. It's like, oh, so it's what I thought then. All right. Rather than, oh, no way.
Because let me give an example of a film that it's totally different in terms of like what the film. So basically, have you seen Sucker Punch?
Yes. Well, I've seen. I kind of had it on in the background. I didn't really concentrate. I didn't really like it that much.
So basically, it's the film that introduced me to Oscar Isaacs, who I love. But that film, it lets you in on its central trope, which is Baby Doll, who is played by Emily Browning, is escaping her real life, which is is she in a mental asylum?
I think so.
Her real life is kind of heightened anyway. It's kind of like the way I describe it to people is like, if you imagine a Tim Burton film, the way it looks, his aesthetic in that, but it's made by Zack Snyder, who loves his action films, it's that.
Right, yeah.
Because she's trying to escape from this asylum, and there's certain tasks that she has to achieve along with her other inmates to escape. So if they're trying to go get this key, rather than showing you an action scene where she's trying to sneak through this, like
the asylum.
Yeah, asylum or bland room. She imagines it as kind of like a creepy dungeon filled with undead monsters that she has to battle.
That's cool.
So because you know the conceit of the film, that this is not real, it's in her head, it makes
then it's kind of nice, because then you feel like you're doing it with her, don't you? Like, you feel like you can relate to how she's feeling. Like,
there's a part where Oscar Isaacs is explaining the rules of the asylum. I haven't seen it in a while, but I think he's explaining the rules of the asylum to Baby Doll. And rather than it shot as just a boring scene where he's like intimidating her, it turns into a massive musical scene with him singing and dancing. So I will put Sucker Punch on the list one day, and we'll get round to reviewing it, because I think it's quite an interesting film. Yeah, it's almost like if they let us in on the like conceit of the film earlier on, I think we might have enjoyed it more. And I did enjoy the film when I first watched it, though. Like, I was on board with them up until the twist, and then it left me kind of cold at the end.
Well, I've just been looking on the ratings. If we're all done, then because it's very interesting, actually, the ratings on it. So, Rotten Tomatoes gives it a 19%, 19.
Oh my god.
Fresh rating, or rotten rating, however you want to say it, which is not great.
Is that certified rotten?
Yeah. Whereas IMDb is a little kinder. It gives a 5.3, which isn't great in terms of IMDb, but it's still better than half.
Yeah.
I mean, when you look at some films, which are like a 6 out of 10, you think, really? That was really good. Everyone likes that. Then a 5.3 doesn't seem so bad. A Metacritic, which is generally the least biased of all the ratings, is 37%, which again is, I'd say, quite fair.
Well, let's get into it, because at the end of every show, me and Jess like to come up with a consensus decision of, like, basically it's our version of a star rating out of 5. At the moment, we have Pirates of the Caribbean at the top, which is 4.5, followed by Ex Machina, which is a 4. And then While You're Sleeping is 3.5.
Oh.
Yeah. But obviously, this is going to go below, spoilers, this is going to go below While You're Sleeping,
Really?
obviously. Yeah. But this is the question I was going to ask you, Jess, because we haven't actually come up with the rules for this. Can we give a film a 0? Or do we have to at least give it something?
I don't think any film deserves a 0, because even when you watch something that's really horrendous, it's kind of funny. Like, you enjoy it because it's bad. So you have to give it props for that. So I can't really think of any film that I would give a 0.
Well, I can, but do you know...
Which one?
No, Last Airbender.
Oh yeah, well, that's a moral decision.
To be fair, because I was thinking about this, in order to give something a 0, you're actually saying to someone...
There is nothing good.
Well, and also this film didn't elicit any response from me whatsoever. Because if it was 0, it'd be a film that I'd be like, meh, it had no effect on me. Because what I was trying to say to you was, because if we were allowed to give something a 0, I would give it a 0.5. But if we're not, and we have to at least give it something, I'd give it a 1 star.
I'd give it 1.5, because I feel like it was on the right track. It just made a few fatal errors. I feel like it wasn't made in poor taste. I think a lot of thought they put into the character of Patrick and how he would feel and how he would interpret this world. But because we had no insight on Patrick, really, it all just felt very like, why are they doing that? That's weird. Ooh. Do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
It just didn't translate very well. So I'd give it a 1.5, because it does have some little kind of touches to it that I thought don't warrant it a 0.5 or even a 1. I think the performances were as good as they could have been with the kind of mess of a script they had. So I give it, 1.5 I'd give it.
Because also it would be nice to have a film that we can sort of like have as a benchmark for all what could be worse than it, if you get what I mean.
Ouch.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I agree. I think 1.5 reflects how much we're able to have a discussion about a film that, you know, has been universally panned by everyone. I think there's more to see than just what's on the surface. And it's not to say it's a great film, but like there's merits to it.
Oh, however though, sorry, I must interject, because if I don't say it, it will annoy me. I hated, in fact, I might even take a 0.5 off. Because I hated that they called that fucking fish Justice.
Oh, yeah. Let's get rid of the 5. Yeah, it's 1.
Oh my god, right, it's a 1.
I so agree.
Oh, I literally turned to Rich and I was like, oh, they haven't. Oh, they didn't. Oh my god, it's so bad. Whose idea was that?
It was probably Stephen Knight's.
Oh, Stephen. Fucking hell. Stephen. But it's fine. It's fine.
Yeah.
Everyone makes mistakes.
Well, you say that, but it's lost the 0.5.
Well, that is justice.
Yeah, that is justice.
We've served justice for the justice crime.
Right, so before we go, it's time for me to announce my pick for next time.
Oh, I'm so excited.
We are staying on the video game route, because when watching this film, it did inspire me, and I thought, we have to do this film before I forget about it and it won't get the justice it deserves.
Oh, God.
So next time we'll be talking about Jumanji 2.
Oh,
was it called?
yeah.
It's Jumanji 2 Welcome to the Jungle, is it?
Welcome to the jungle. We got funny things.
So we'll be talking about that. And I was thinking, we can't do a sequel without doing the original. However, because I think a lot of the film itself generate discussion about the original film. Like, you know, you and I who have seen the original film, we won't be able to watch this film without saying like, this is because of this, or you know what I mean? So I'm calling it a Jumanji 2 mashed into one. We won't analyse the first film as much as the second, but there will be discussion about the first one. So if you haven't seen the first one, please make sure you have seen both before you come listen.
But let's be honest, who hasn't seen Jumanji?
I know, yeah, I know. It's on Netflix right now, so I'm sure, especially in the UK, so I'm sure if anyone's listening from the UK, you can go find it easy.
I think it's quite short, as well, isn't it? It feels short anyway. I mean, you don't need an excuse. You'll have so much fun. You'll thank us.
Exactly, yeah. But yes, I thought, let's watch Jumanji 2. It will be an interesting take of a video game film done right.
Yeah.
And also we get to talk about The Rock, who is Jess's other husband.
He's my only husband.
I was going to say.
Yes, Penny doesn't look very much like him, but...
You never know.
You never know.
So yeah, Jess, it's been interesting talking about a film that we deem not to be that great.
Yeah, but I think it was interesting. I had fun.
I think it'll be different next time because I think we both enjoyed Jumanji 2. So all that's left for us to say is goodbye. I hope you had fun.
Go catch that fish.
For justice!
For justice!